Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most pivotal events in American history, the American Civil War. From 1861 to 1865, the very fabric of this nation was torn asunder, brother fighting brother in a conflict as tragic as it was transformative. Join us as we journey back to this era, exploring the deep-seated tensions that fractured a nation and led it down the path of war. We will delve into the lives of those who lived through these tumultuous times, soldiers and civilians, slaves and abolitionists, and witness the battles, both political and physical, that shaped the course of a nation. Let us explore the causes and consequences of this monumental conflict, a conflict that would ultimately redefine the meaning of freedom and forge a new path for America. The seeds of discord were sown long before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter. For decades, the issue of slavery cast a long shadow over the young nation. In the North, where industry flourished, slavery was seen as morally abhorrent. Abolitionist movements gained momentum, fueled by voices like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman. In the South, agriculture reigned supreme, and slavery was deeply entrenched. As new territories were added, the question of slavery ignited fierce debates in Congress. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 sought to maintain a balance between slave and free states. The Compromise of 1850 further inflamed tensions. The Fugitive Slave Act required citizens in free states to assist in the capture of escaped slaves, outraging many Northerners. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin deepened the divide. The Dred Scott decision of 1857 ruled that African Americans were not citizens, sending shockwaves through the nation. By the eve of the Civil War, the nation stood deeply divided over slavery and the Union. The tension that had been building for decades finally erupted in April 1861. In Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, stood Fort Sumter, a lonely outpost of Union control in a state that had seceded from the Union just months earlier. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces, under the command of General P.G.T. Beauregard, opened fire on the fort. For 34 hours, cannons roared, sending shells crashing into the fort's brick walls. The bombardment, though fierce, resulted in remarkably few casualties. However, the symbolic importance of the attack could not be overstated. Fort Sumter was not just a military installation, it represented the authority of the United States government. The Confederate attack on Fort Sumter was an act of defiance, a declaration that they would no longer submit to the will of Washington. News of the attack spread like wildfire throughout the nation. In the North, outrage and disbelief quickly turned to a resolute call for action. President Abraham Lincoln, who had just taken office a month earlier, called for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. In the South, the attack on Fort Sumter was met with jubilation. It was seen as a righteous defense of their way of life, their liberty, and their right to self-determination. The Confederate States of America, formed just months earlier, now had a cause to rally around. The attack on Fort Sumter marked the beginning of the bloodiest conflict in American history. It was a conflict that would pit brother against brother, father against son, and leave an indelible scar on the nation's soul. The American Civil War was a clash of two very different worlds. The North, with its industrial might and vast resources, entered the war confident in its ability to quickly crush the rebellion. The South, though lacking the North's industrial capacity, had a strong military tradition and the advantage of fighting on familiar ground. The early battles of the war were marked by a sense of naivete on both sides. At Bull Run in July 1861, picnicking spectators from nearby Washington, D.C. gathered to witness what they believed would be a swift Union victory. However, the Confederate Army, led by the audacious Stonewall Jackson, routed the Union forces, shattering any illusions of a quick and easy victory. The Battle of Shiloh in April 1862 was a brutal two-day engagement that left over 23,000 casualties on both sides. The sheer scale of the carnage shocked both North and South, driving home the grim reality of the war they were now embroiled in. As the war dragged on, both sides adapted their strategies. The North, under the leadership of Ulysses S. Grant, adopted a strategy of attrition, leveraging its superior resources to wear down the Confederacy. The South, led by Robert E. Lee, relied on bold, offensive maneuvers, hoping to deliver a decisive blow that would break the North's will to fight. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, proved to be a turning point in the war. Over 3 days of intense fighting, Union and Confederate forces clashed in a battle that left over 50,000 casualties. The Confederate defeat at Gettysburg marked the end of Lee's invasion of the North and dealt a severe blow to Southern morale. In the West, Grant's Vicksburg campaign gave the Union control of the Mississippi River, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. Sherman's March to the Sea, a scorched earth campaign through Georgia in late 1864, further crippled the South's ability to wage war. The American Civil War, from its outset, was a war about slavery. While the initial aim of the North was to preserve the Union, the moral imperative to end slavery grew stronger with each passing year. President Abraham Lincoln, a man of deep moral conviction, recognized that slavery was a stain on the nation's soul. He also understood that the institution of slavery gave the Confederacy a distinct advantage in the war effort. On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that would forever alter the course of American history. The proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are, and henceforward shall be free. The Emancipation Proclamation was a watershed moment in the fight for freedom and equality in the United States. It transformed the Civil War from a struggle to preserve the Union into a fight for human liberation. The proclamation had both immediate and long-term impacts. It allowed African Americans to enlist in the Union Army, adding much-needed manpower to the Union cause. Over 200,000 African Americans would go on to serve in the Union Army and Navy, playing a crucial role in securing Union victory. The Emancipation Proclamation also served as a beacon of hope for enslaved people in the South. News of the proclamation spread slowly, often carried by word of mouth or by Union soldiers advancing into Confederate territory. For those who had endured the horrors of slavery, the proclamation offered a promise of freedom, a light at the end of a long and dark tunnel. The American Civil War officially ended on April 9, 1865, with the surrender of Robert E. Lee to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. The war had exacted a heavy toll on the nation. Over 620,000 soldiers from both North and South had perished in the conflict, more than all other American wars combined. The South lay in ruins, its economy shattered, its infrastructure destroyed, and its social fabric torn apart. The process of rebuilding the nation, both physically and politically, would prove to be a long and arduous task. Reconstruction, as this period came to be known, was a time of great promise and even greater challenges. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1865, abolished slavery, formally ending the institution that had divided the nation for so long. The 14th and 15th Amendments, ratified in 1868 and 1870 respectively, granted citizenship and voting rights to African Americans. However, the road to equality was fraught with obstacles. Southern states, reluctant to relinquish their old ways, enacted black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedoms of newly freed African Americans. White supremacist groups, such as the Ku Klux Klan, emerged, terrorizing African Americans and their white allies. The federal government, tasked with enforcing Reconstruction policies, often found itself caught in the crossfire. Despite the challenges, the Reconstruction era witnessed significant progress for African Americans. Former slaves exercised their newfound freedoms, establishing businesses, pursuing education, and holding elected office. The Freedmen's Bureau, established in 1865, provided assistance to newly freed slaves, helping them transition to freedom and rebuild their lives. The American Civil War was a period of profound transformation for the United States. It tested the very foundations of the nation and forced Americans to confront the legacy of slavery and the true meaning of freedom. Though the war left deep scars on the nation's psyche, it also paved the way for a more just and equitable society. The ideals of liberty and equality, enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, took on new meaning in the wake of the Civil War. The struggle for civil rights, ignited by the Civil War, would continue for generations to come, inspiring movements for social justice and equality that resonate to this very day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical content. See you next time.